The moment Joe Rogan leaned forward and said they finally had proof, everything changed. It was not just another conversation, not just another opinion being shared. The tone shifted instantly. You could feel it. Then Candace Owens quietly pulled out her phone, and what she showed next turned the entire situation upside down. These were not rumors anymore. These were not guesses. These were messages, timestamps, and details that pointed directly at one person, Erica Kirk. For months, Erica had stayed calm in public. She spoke softly. She chose her words carefully. Every appearance she made felt controlled, almost too perfect. People saw her as someone dealing with loss, someone trying to stay strong. But behind that calm image, there were already questions building, small cracks that nobody fully understood at the time. And now, those cracks were turning into something much bigger. The biggest problem was not just what she said, it was how her story kept changing. Different people were hearing different versions of the same events. At first, it seemed like confusion. Then it started to feel like something else. And when Joe and Candace laid everything out side by side, it became impossible to ignore. One version of the story said she never met a certain person. Another version said they spoke briefly. A third version claimed it was just work-related. 3 different explanations for the same night. That is not a mistake. That is not memory slipping. That is something much deeper. Joe did not hold back. He looked at the messages and said clearly, "This is not confusion. This is lying." And once that word was said out loud, everything else started falling into place. Because if one part of the story was not true, then what else was being hidden? Things became even more serious when the focus shifted to Charlie Kirk himself. People started looking back at his final public appearances, and suddenly, his behavior looked different. He did not seem relaxed. He did not seem confident. He looked worried. He looked like someone dealing with something heavy behind the scenes. Sources began speaking up, quietly at first. They said there were arguments. They said there were trust issues. They said Charlie had started noticing things that did not make sense. He reportedly stopped sharing his full schedule. He started using a second phone. He became more careful about who he spoke to and what he shared. And then came the most chilling part. A voicemail. A message that Charlie left shortly before everything changed. In that message, his voice sounded tired and stressed. He said he believed something was going on behind his back. He said he checked details and things did not match. And then he said something that shook everyone. "If something happens to me, it is connected to this." That line alone changed how people saw everything. Because now this was not just about mixed stories or small lies. This felt bigger. It felt serious. It felt like there was something happening that had not been fully revealed yet. Candace then showed another piece of evidence. A message from Erica in a private chat. In that message, she said if Charlie finds out what happened at the dinner, she is finished. That one word, finished, raised even more questions. Why would a simple meeting cause that kind of fear? Then came the reveal of who she was talking to. The name that shocked everyone. Kash Patel. This was not just anyone. This was someone Charlie did not trust, someone he had concerns about. And now there were messages showing communication happening behind his back, late at night. During the same time Erica claimed nothing was going on. Joe reacted strongly to this. He pointed out that this was not just about hiding a meeting. This looked like coordination. Messages showed Erica asking what she should say, and replies telling her how to explain things, what to leave out, and how to shape the story. That is when the situation took a darker turn. Because this was no longer about one person making excuses. This looked like 2 people working together to control what others believed. And when you see messages like "stick to the timeline" and "don't mention the first meeting," it starts to feel planned. Then came another piece of evidence. A photo, taken at a restaurant. The same place Erica claimed was not important. In the photo, she was sitting close to Kash Patel, smiling, relaxed, clearly not in a formal setting. That image alone contradicted everything she had been saying. At that point, the internet exploded. People started sharing clips, breaking down every detail, comparing timelines, and connecting dots. Social media was filled with reactions. Some were shocked, some were angry, some said they had suspected something all along. But just when it seemed like everything had already come out, another twist appeared. A second meeting, a different location, a private setting, and another name entered the story, J.D. Vance. This shocked people even more, because this was someone close to Charlie, someone he trusted. And now there was evidence showing a private meeting between J.D. Vance and Erica, happening quietly, away from public view. The photo showed them sitting together at night in a private space. Not a public event, not a work meeting, something more personal. And according to the timeline, this happened just days before Charlie recorded that worrying voicemail. Messages connected to this meeting made things even worse. One message suggested that the meeting was being hidden on purpose, that it would not appear in phone records, that it needed to stay secret. Joe reacted with disbelief. He pointed out that this was no longer just about one hidden conversation. This was a pattern. Multiple meetings, multiple people, and a clear effort to hide all of it. Candace also made it clear that what had been shown so far might not even be everything. There were hints of more information. Another meeting, another person, someone whose identity had not yet been revealed. And that is where the biggest question now stands. Who was the fourth person? Because according to the insider, that name could change everything again. It could connect all the pieces in a way nobody expects. It could explain why Charlie was so worried. It could explain why so many details were being hidden. Right now, people are left with more questions than answers. Why were there so many different versions of the same story? Why were these meetings kept secret? Why was there communication with people Charlie did not trust? And most importantly, what exactly did Charlie discover before everything came out? The silence from Erica has only made things more intense. No clear response. No full explanation. And in a situation like this, silence speaks loudly. People are now watching closely, waiting for the next piece of information, the next message, the next reveal. Because this story is not over. Every new detail adds another layer, and every layer makes the situation more serious. What started as quiet doubts has now turned into a full investigation in the public eye. And until all the missing pieces are revealed, the biggest questions will remain unanswered. As more people began digging into the timeline, things only started to look worse. The problem was no longer just a few messages or one hidden meeting. It was the pattern. Every new detail seemed to confirm that something had been carefully managed behind the scenes. And the more people looked, the more they noticed how often Erica Kirk changed small details in her story depending on who she was speaking to. Clips from her past interviews started resurfacing. At first, they seemed normal, but when viewers watched them again with this new information in mind, everything felt different. In one interview, she said she had no contact with certain individuals. In another, she admitted brief communication. In yet another, she described those same interactions as work-related. These were not small differences. These were major shifts. People began pointing out how her tone would change too. Sometimes she sounded confident. Other times, she hesitated. There were moments where she avoided direct answers completely. At the time, no one paid much attention. But now, those moments were being replayed again and again, and each time they raised more questions. Meanwhile, Joe Rogan continued to press the issue. He did not just focus on what was shown, he focused on what it meant. He explained that when someone tells multiple versions of the same event, it usually means they are trying to control the story. And when there are messages showing someone asking what to say, that suggests planning, not confusion. Candace Owens backed this up by explaining how long she had been sitting on some of this information. She said she did not want to release anything without being sure. But once the pieces started coming together, she felt it was important to show everything at once so people could see the full picture. And that full picture was not simple at all, because now it was not just about Kash Patel or J.D. Vance individually, it was about how all these connections overlapped, the same time frames, the same gaps in the story, the same effort to hide details. One of the most talked about parts was the idea of coaching. Messages suggested that Erica was not just explaining events, she was being guided on how to explain them. What to say, what not to say, how to respond if questioned. That detail alone changed how many people viewed the entire situation. Because if someone is being told how to shape their story, it raises a serious question. What are they trying to protect? At the same time, people close to Charlie Kirk began speaking more openly. Some shared that Charlie had mentioned feeling uneasy weeks before anything became public. Others said he had hinted that something was not right but did not give full details. One person claimed that Charlie had started keeping certain things to himself. He reportedly did not trust everyone around him the same way anymore. He became more private, more careful. And that behavior now seems to match what was later revealed in the messages and recordings. The voicemail continued to be one of the most powerful pieces of evidence, not because it proved everything, but because it showed his state of mind. He sounded worried, not angry, not dramatic, just genuinely concerned. And when someone in that position says something feels wrong, people tend to take it seriously. As this all spread online, reactions kept growing. Some people said this was one of the biggest betrayals they had seen in a long time. Others said it showed how easily a public image can be controlled while something completely different is happening in private. There were also people who remained unsure. They pointed out that not every detail had been confirmed publicly. They said it was important to be careful before making final judgments. But even those voices admitted that the situation did not look good. What made things even more intense was the mention of another person, the so-called fourth individual, the one who was reportedly present at a private meeting but whose name had not been revealed yet. That unknown identity became the biggest focus. People started guessing. Some believed it could be another political figure. Others thought it might be someone from Charlie's inner circle. Some even suggested it could be someone completely unexpected, someone who had managed to stay out of the spotlight until now. The idea that there was still more to come kept the story alive. It was not just about what had already been shown, it was about what might be revealed next. And then there was the question of motive.